Welcome to Kitchen Therapy Whole Grain Gluten-Free Quick Bread class. A lot of people ask, what is a grain? A true grain, is the seed of a grass, and it has three parts to the seed. There's the outer part, this is called the bran, and this is where the fiber is, and it protects the seed. This part is called the endosperm, and this is the starchy part, and it's carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are starchy, and it feeds this area here. This is called the germ. This is what germinates. This is what becomes the seed. And this area here is concentrated with vitamins and minerals, some protein, and some healthy oils. Flours that are not whole grain don't have these two parts in them. They're only this part, only the endosperm. These parts spoil quicker, and so that's why they're removed from lots of kinds of flour. But this is where the majority of your nutrition is, and there's also wonderful flavor there too. So of the flours that we're going to use in this video series, we're going to use some that are true grains, and those would be sorghum, millet, rice, certified gluten-free oats, and teff. We're also going to use buckwheat and quinoa that are not true grains. They are delicious and wonderful to use, and we're going to treat them like a grain flour, but botanically and technically they're not true grains. Some of these grains are easier to use than others. Sometimes I use just the flour. Sometimes we use the flour and the seeds. In other recipes we might use rolled flakes also. Some of these are play well with others, and some are kind of picky, and it's kind of difficult to use them. We'll talk about that in each of the recipes, and I'll share what is easy and what works, what's delicious and what's nutritious. So what makes a flour whole grain? That's when the bran, the endosperm, and the germ are all ground up together, and everything's in the flour. And that's the most nutritious way to have flour. There's also refined flour where they use only the endosperm. The bran and the germ have been removed. Only the endosperm is ground up, and that would be like many flours that you get. And then what's a refined starch? That's where they take the endosperm, that starchy part, and take any protein, any vitamins, any minerals, any fat, pretty much any nutrition out of it, and grind that up. And so you get things like cornstarch or tapioca starch or potato starch. Those are all refined starches, and they have calories but nothing else. And so in our recipes we don't use those. We're just using 100% whole grain gluten-free flours. How do you know that you're getting really, truly gluten-free flour? Well, there's several things to consider. Number one, the flour might be manufactured and milled in a dedicated gluten-free facility. An example of that would be some of Bob's Red Mill products. They have a separate gluten-free milling facility for some products, but not all of their products are. And we'll talk about that in each individual video so that you can see what company will manufacture a gluten-free product for you. Some products are not in dedicated facilities, but they are tested when they're done, and so they can guarantee gluten-free status. Arrowhead Mills is an example of that. They run glutinous and gluten-free products all in the same facility, but they stop production and thoroughly clean everything and then test their end products so that they can guarantee that they are truly gluten-free. And then some products that are naturally gluten-free, say sorghum flour is naturally gluten-free. You can buy that from a variety of places like Bob's Red Mill or Arrowhead Mills, or you might be able to find that also in an ethnic grocery, and it's common in Indian cuisine, and it's called jawar there. So sorghum is a natural gluten-free grain, but when I get it from companies that are in the ethnic grocery, those companies do not guarantee that it's gluten-free because they are not testing. They have really no way of knowing if it's gluten-free or not. So you want to keep all these things into consideration when you are purchasing your flours. And when they are certified gluten-free or when they're run on dedicated gluten-free facilities, they often cost more. But if you need to have that assurance, you need to take that into consideration. Also, there is some variability among flours, and you can see this between kinds of flour. Like sorghum, I've used a variety of different types of sorghum, and that's one that seems to be more variable than others. In this country, we are so used to everything being completely regimented and tested in the same, and sometimes that isn't always the case for these gluten-free flours. It may come to be in the future, but it isn't always right now. And then also between the brands, sometimes they might mill it finer or coarser, or it might be fluffier and lighter. So once you find a brand, a type in a brand that you like, stick with that, and then because you know you'll have success. And that's a wonderful way to go.